Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. This is Will Booth from DNA Business Management Solutions. And our topic for today's Lunch and Learn is for clients that are thinking about moving up from Business Vision to another Sage product. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Sage 300C, potentially because their business has grown or they're looking for more features. So please feel free to put any comments in the chat window. We are recording this session, so please be aware that the recording is on. We'll be sending out the recording to everybody after the event. But today we'll get right started into the demonstration. I want to just let everybody know the agenda today. So we're going to review Sage 300C. What are the common growth issues that Business Vision clients have seen that we've been dealing with? Any questions and what the migration details would be and next steps if you want to migrate and any promotions. I also want to introduce my hosts for today, but in the meantime, for some of you, you may not know DNA Business Management Solutions, or may not have worked with us already. We've been in business for 25 years. We support clients in the National Capital Region of Canada, as well as across Northern and Eastern Ontario, Western Quebec, and even into the US and across Canada. We've been in business, as I said, 25 years. We're a team of 14 certified Sage professionals. We only provide Sage and related solutions. We focus on the accounting, CRM, HR, payroll, job costing, basically all the add-ons, e-commerce and AP payment processing, and many other features to enhance your system. One key differentiator we find from a lot of Sage partners in other areas with other products is that when you call, we answer the phone. We have a dedicated team of people here that will answer your call when you need assistance. And without any further ado, we'll get right into who our presenters are today. Jennifer Schwartz is our partner account manager from Sage. She has broad experience with many Sage products, formerly the Business Vision product manager, as well as working with several other mobile and cloud solutions. She's been with Sage over 15 years. And I also have on the line with us Rob Lawson. He's the senior field sales engineer for Sage Accounting Solutions and CRM. He'll be showing us Sage 300C today, and he's 20 years of experience plus with Sage. He's been a business partner. He has accounting and implementation experience. He's a great resource for us all. So I want to welcome Jennifer and Rob, and thank you for doing this presentation for us today.
No problem, Will. Thanks. Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer here. I'm going to take the first few minutes of the presentation, but the bulk of it's going to be Rob and really getting into the details of the system. What I wanted to share with everybody is kind of what we've seen over the past few years, as some of, a handful of our customers have definitely identified the fact that they've outgrown their Business Vision system and they need something more, right? And there doesn't seem to be one reason that we can attribute to I've outgrown my system. So there's really not, something that we can put on a checklist. It's, as you can see here, a wide range of issues, and they're very generic. So I've just simply outgrown the system. Rob will go through some of the details of what we've seen specifically with working with the Business Vision customers moving to 300. So what are the very specific detailed things behind we've just outgrown our system, whether it's customer service or integration or some inventory issues. Those are kind of the big things. So you may be running into one of those issues yourself as well. The one thing I want to chat about with you, because we've had a large number of customers that have migrated, and it is from one Sage product to another, it is important to realize that we want to make it, we being Sage, and we probably the DNA team, I'll speak for them, we want to make it as easy and seamless for you as possible to move from one product to another. In this case, possibly Sage Business Vision to Sage 300C. But there's a number of things that you need to be aware of, right? First of all, if you have been on your system for 10 or 20 years, which most Business Vision customers have been on that product for 15 plus years, you may not know really much about Sage. You might not know about what other products and publishers are out there. So do your research about any products that you're looking at. You probably will want to look at some other systems just to know what's the price of some other systems, what's cloud-based and what's not. What publishers am I comfortable putting my entire business on, right? Are they a strong company that is going to be around for the next 2, 3, 10 years? So do your research on the publisher and what's out there product-wise. Product, in our case, I'll go through our full portfolio within Sage because, of course, it's much broader than just Sage Business Vision and Sage 300. We have a wide range of products, and we do sometimes find a customer that if they have outgrown Sage Business Vision, even Sage 300 isn't the right fit. Sometimes there's other products. For the most part, Sage 300 is a really great fit, and that's what we'll focus on today. The other thing is the partner, which obviously we're doing this webcast with DNA because you're in really good hands as a Sage Business Vision customer with a partner like DNA because they know both systems. So they have years and years of implementation experience, very strong in both Sage Business Vision and Sage 300. So that makes it a lot easier for them to, again, to the seamless migration, makes it, excuse me, a lot easier for them to help you get training. They know what features you had in Sage Business Vision and how to translate that into Sage 300. So you're in great hands with a good partner like DNA. And it's very important that you rely on them as much as possible because it'll take you 10 times as long to figure out something on your own, whereas they've done these things hundreds of times and they can very quickly get to the steps and the answers to do what you need to do. They're the experts. That's what they're there for. And the final two things that kind of go together is the prioritization and preparation. You know, this is what's running your business. Right? We realize these accounting systems are what, this is how you send out your invoices. This is how you do your accounts receivable and pay your employees. These are, important systems. When you're going to change between systems, it needs to be a priority for your company. You need to have a champion internally that's going to be that point person. You need to make sure that you're willing to put in the time and the effort and prioritize this as a project for your company. And that's how you're going to be the most successful in any migration. I won't spend a ton of time on Sage, but because a lot of our Business Vision customers were customers of Sage Business Vision, perhaps even prior to Sage owning Business Vision, because Sage has grown over the years through acquisition. So a lot of customers don't really know much about the parent company Sage. So Sage Business Vision has been part of Sage for well over 10 years now. Sometimes we go through things like naming changes, but for the most part, the product and even the people, the developers, the support people have remained intact. So it's the same people supporting that product. It's just now we're part of the larger umbrella of Sage. But Sage globally, our head offices are at the UK, and we actually are a global company. We have, as you can see, we're market leaders not only in Canada, because we are in Canada, but also Europe, South Africa, Asia, and Brazil. Specific to you folks on the call today, having a great Canadian presence, I think, is a big positive for you guys. We have over 500 employees that sit just in Canada, and that would be development and marketing and support people. So if you're going to call into the support line for Sage 300C and speak to someone, you're speaking to someone that's sitting in Canada, right? So if you talk about a T4 or an ROE or what a SIN number is, they know what all of those things are, right? They're Canadians. So we understand your business and where you're coming from, right? Coast to coast, we understand that the market and the landscape of Canada. But we are a very, obviously, large company. So we're not going away tomorrow, very large. We're actually the third largest company in the small to mid-sized business space. So you're in really good hands when you choose a Sage product. As I mentioned earlier, there's the whole portfolio of products. So as you may know, we've gone through some changes with Sage Business Vision, and like any company, you're going to have some products that gain more focus and get more of the funding than others. So Sage Business Vision is one that we have committed to, supporting. So the product is not going to go away, but we're not investing heavily into it. So you won't ever see Business Vision with, web screens or anything. We're not going to rewrite it to be cloud-based. It's going to remain the way that it is long into the future. So this is the point where if you're looking for more than that, if you're running into integration issues or issues with other systems, this is where you may want to look within the portfolio. So Sage 50, as you see, kind of sits in the startup and small business segment, as we call it. And then we've got kind of the scale-up and enterprise. That's kind of the small, medium, and mid-market. Sage 300 we're going to focus on today. There's a larger one up there for enterprise, which is Sage X3. And then we do have a line of cloud-based solutions. But I would say for most of you, knowing the Sage Business Vision market, Sage 1 and Sage Live are probably a little bit a little bit off from what you guys would need, depending on your business, of course. So DNA, again, can speak to all these products. We're going to focus on 300 today, but there are a lot of options within Sage. Modules within Sage 300. So the main question is, what do you have today? You have a subset of modules Sage Business Vision comes with. It's very similar to the way Sage 300 comes. We have 3 different bundles, and within those bundles, there's various modules. So after years of knowing both products, working with both products, there's nothing that you'll really lose with Sage 300, with one exception. You will notice if you happen to have anybody today that's using the point of sale module, you'll see that we do not have a point of sale module, although, and that's a module that's just part of the core bundle with Sage 300. We certainly have lots of options for integrated point of sale solutions. So that's the one thing missing. But there are a lot of things that are additions that you don't have, okay? Multilingual, okay, ability would be just something out of the box. We have French and English available, and that's not through any third party. That's just part of the core system that we're multi-currency and multilingual. And then there's additional things like serialization and lot tracking that you don't have built into the Sage Business Vision system. Very strong and just part of the core Sage 300C system. In addition to those modules, we also have a wide range of what we call connected services. So connected services, if you just think of it as kind of extra bonus modules, if you will, as part of 300C and the subscription-based service that it is, sometimes we just add in modules or outside services that we give to our Sage 300C customers. So this is an example of some of these. These are all individual products with really strong value propositions and great features to each of them. If you have inventory, there's something to help with your inventory planning, forecasting, replenishment. We've got AP automation. We've got integrated e-commerce solutions and budgeting and planning. Those are just an example of what's come over the last couple of years. And as time goes on, we'll add in more and more connected services that will just be available to our Sage 300C customers. And so we're really going out and finding the best of breed products from the outside and then just making them available at no charge, usually to our 300C customers. Rob will also talk about, in addition to kind of what we offer from a Sage perspective, there's also a wide range of add-ons. So those would be our what we sometimes call third-party ISVs, the outside systems that are very, very strong, and many of them have been with us for 20 years, and you can also choose to plug those into your system. So once you do make a move to Sage 300C, what we find is there's a whole world of integrations, possibilities within your system that you can now plug in for various aspects of your business. Okay, so that's kind of, I think, my overview. Rob, if you're ready to go, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. And I agree with what you said. We almost never do a Sage 300C implementation without some sort of an additional module, be it one of the Sage endorsed solutions or one of the long-standing third-party products that just further enhance the system that we just never found. You could find a lot of them in the Business Vision ecosystem.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Jen. So I wanted to start with talking about Sage 300C a little bit. And just to explain that if you're not used to what the C stands for, it actually means the connected services Jen was just describing. But from a technology perspective, you still have two offerings, and that's the Sage 300 Desktop, which gives you the full, robust, high-volume data entry, deep, robust, detailed product that you have access to that our 300 customers have had access to for 20 years. The 300C introduces the connected services, which do connect to the desktop, but also the ability to have what we call web screens, which are HTML5 64-bit web screens. So not everyone has to use the web screens. They're meant for specific roles and responsibilities, such as users that need remote access that you might be doing with terminal services or remote desktop or through some other method of connecting to your office from a remote location. This just gives you that one additional option of being able to connect to the product without having to actually have it installed locally or even having to have it at your office or at your home to be able to get to it. In addition, it's a part of the subscription model that we're offering with Sage 300. We have built-in Sage Intelligence tools. We have a built-in CRM integration. Jen already mentioned the inventory planning and forecasting. The web screens do offer a good bit of configuration / customization. Again, as I was talking about, anywhere access and ability to integrate into the connected services that Jen mentioned earlier. So that just kind of gives you a sense of what the product is. The screens for the web product connect to the business logic and the actual database of the 300 product. So I'll be showing you a bit of both, just so you get a sense of the newest look and feel for Sage 300 2018 with the web screens and the classic desktop. So this is a screenshot of a future release for the desktop, which you actually see some dashboard elements there. This is being rolled out and been bumped up as a priority for our development team. So this will be rolling out in the next year with a product update to 2018. The web screen on the left is a version of our web screens that has recently been out that gives you access to the product through a browser. So we're supporting Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and Explorer, the standard industry browsers out there. So this is a screenshot of our new desktop, and this is a rendering for what the dashboards might look like. So this is just kind of a look and feel situation. This is actually one of our GL journal entry screens that have been simplified and updated with a new monochromatic look and feel. And we've simply just tried to make the product feel a little bit more current with some updates to the UI. We've also, for several releases now, offered what's called visual process flows. We've updated the theme applied to the visual process flows, and this is our stock AP process. So when I go into the actual product, I'll show you the visual process flows and what they look like and how they can be configured / customized. So let's start with looking at the actual desktop product here in the system. So to do that, I'm going to share my screen. And you should see a logon page there at that point.
I got you, Rob. I see it.
Great. Thanks, Will. So from here, I have opened up the 300 desktop, and I just have open company as an option. I have the ability to switch between companies here in the system. My session date is 06/30/2020. That's the demo data date. I don't have security turned on, so I'm not going to have to be prompted for a password, but this does work with Windows authentication if you choose to use that. At this point, I'm going to simply click on OK, and this will load me into the product. And you actually see the default AP visual process flow listed there. Now you also see several other ones listed. I've got an AP transaction custom, a V2 custom. I've got a setup process for recurring charges and credit card setup. These are all custom visual process flows that I make available to our business partners, such as Will and his team, in our demo image program. So the default AP one has enter invoices, make payments, and run transaction reports and analytical reports, which looks fairly straightforward, but the process, the real actual process you might have to go through would be, if I need to enter invoices, that's fine, but if I need to write a single check, that's what make payment is actually doing. Most customers don't write a check at a time. They want to create a payment batch that says, give me all checks that are due as of, all invoices that are due as of the 15th of the month, right? And then I need to print all of those checks. Well, when you're printing checks, sometimes you make a mistake. A vendor calls and says they never got the check, so you need to reverse a check. So I added the icon for reversing a check. So these are just some simple examples of flow that I've altered in my visual process flow to make more sense of how I would present the product and or really use the product. So these icons actually represent links to these processes and or reports. So if I want to look at vendor activity, I simply click on the link and it would actually load that form or that screen for the AP vendor activity for me, so I can go look up, for example, vendor 1200 and find that vendor information here. I can find their activity, their aging, the actual transactions for that vendor, and any payments that we've made to that vendor in the system. Now, if you don't know the vendor you're looking for, you can actually use the Finder. And what you're going to find is the Finder is actually available throughout the product and can actually be maximized, so you can see all of my vendors. I'm using demo data. But I can actually alter what value I want to look for. So if I was looking for a vendor number, starting with, I could do 1200, and it's going to auto search for me. There's that vendor 1200. Well, if I don't know the vendor number, then I want to search by vendor name, and I can change it to contains. So this gives me the ability to search across all records. So if I type in system, then it's going to find all vendors that have the name, the system in their name. In this case, it's just chloride. So I can select that vendor, hit select, and that takes me into that vendor record in this inquiry screen. The other really nice thing about the Finder here is you can actually go into settings and you can actually color code the columns so that it brings to light the values you're looking at or you want to look for. You can also go in and choose what columns are most relevant to you. I like to choose different values, maybe the vendor class, the terms code, maybe a note screen, maybe the discount level, maybe the salesperson, maybe the tax group. These are all just examples of data that I can choose to add to the list of columns on the screen. Once they're on the list of columns, so if I add account set, I just hit include, it'll drop it down here at the bottom. But then when I do that, it adds it to the list, and it adds it to the list of values that I can search on. So that's the really cool part that a lot of customers miss is, well, they think they can only search on the values that are in that list. Actually, it's the columns that you define that you can search on. So by adding whatever column I need from the list, I can then search on that value in the Finder. Now, what's the icing on the cake is, in addition to searching on what I want to search on, it allows me to see and sort the values the way I want to sort them, so I can move that phone number over, can make that column a little bit bigger, and make it fit to the screen so I can see the values I want to see on the screen that are most relevant to me. And it remembers it by Finder, by user. So as I'm going through the system, each user would be able to set their own preferences and their own settings in the system. So whenever they go into that screen, regardless of the company, as long as they're logged in with their username, their setting is going to be remembered. That logic is also applied to the screens here as well. So if they always want to see the remit to location, they can move that over, and now that's always on the screen, and they can actually have access to that in real time. So that just gives you a sense of some of the navigation and basic functionality in the system. At the top left, you can see the company I'm logged into, Sample Company, Inc. The user I'm logged in as administrator on the top right. Then on the bottom right, you actually see the session date that I'm using in the system. Again, demo data. And you can see the print destination that I've set to use in the system as well. If I was to switch to another company, so if I go from Sample Company, Inc. to Job Costing Demo Data, this is demo data I built to present the job costing product, you'll actually notice the blue changes a little bit darker or a little bit brighter blue. If I go Open Company and I choose Sample Company Limited and I change to the 2020 time period and hit Enter, you'll notice the blue goes a little bit darker as well. This is me changing that color preference by company in the system, so I can obviously make them much more dramatic and have it be very obvious, but I like blue. It's my favorite color, so I'm going to stick with the blue patterns in the system. You can also see that this is defaulted to my V2 version of my AP process, which has got a note, and I've actually highlighted and added some bank reconciliation functionality here as well. All right. So let's go back to our slides. So that kind of gives you a sense of the desktop and what it looks like. Let's go on to our next set of slides here. So here you can actually see I have the web screens for Sage 300. This is actually drilled into the dashboard, and I can actually see the layout of the dashboard on the screen there. Then you can actually see a screen where it has the accounts payable, where I actually have the AP vendors, and I can drill into AP vendors. I'll highlight here that it also has the intelligence option available. So that's this specific feature here. So you can actually see that it gives me the ability to have the intelligence tool in the system. So I have the ability to see that and clearly define that in the system. Right after that, I want to go ahead and just show you what that screen looks like. So I'm going to return and go back and share my screen there. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the browser now. So if I open up the browser inside this screen here, you'll see it actually gives me the ability to choose whatever screens or options I wanted. I've actually added some shortcuts here in my browser for simple access to support or videos on Sage University, the release notes for 2018, as well as all the release notes for 2017 and the what's new as well. So if I wanted to go to 300C screens, I simply select my shortcut to that. As I mentioned before, this can be accessed through a browser, over the internet, or just in the intranet. So what will happen here is this will actually go through and load the product, and I just rebooted my server, so this will take a minute to load in the system. So what you'll notice, as I mentioned before, was that the actual navigation moves to the top, and we have some control buttons on the right that will give us more functionality in the system.
And this is, Rob, a key differentiator between Business Vision and Sage 300, that you don't have access to web-based screens to access the product. The desktop screens that you showed already are different, obviously, than the desktop screens at Business Vision, but they function in a somewhat similar way with a local install and that sort of function. But this is access anywhere if people want it, right, which is a real game changer for a lot of people.
Absolutely, and that's what I was referring to earlier, was that I can use these screens through a browser now, and I don't have to actually have the application installed on my machine to get access to Sage 300. Now, for me, I always want to make clear that the classic desktop, the full application, the data entry on that screen is usually going to be quicker and faster because that's really what it was designed for. This is quick, but not heads down, thousands of transactions a day kind of entry. Right, so a bit of a difference, but for a lot of customers, they use the mouse. They don't do data entry heads down anymore. For a lot of clients that have been doing a lot of data entry for a long time, using those DOS-based screens or high-volume data entry screens, they want the other. So we're not making you use one or the other. We give you the choice of both.
Absolutely, and whether they're a salesperson on the road just doing a quote for somebody quickly, or somebody's in the finance department in their home and want to check something in the evening, they don't want to log into a VPN and remote to the desktop and all that kind of stuff. They just want to check a number or something or forward something to somebody. This is a great way to do that as well.
Absolutely.
With our clients.
Absolutely, and just to that point, you don't have, if you have your tablet, your iPad, your Android tablet on your lap, and you're doing something on the internet and you want to check something, you're on the internet, go to the URL, log in, do whatever you need to do, and done. Right, because you have access to it.
Absolutely,
so really,
and it's secure, HTTPS access, right? Like there's nothing to worry about there.
Exactly, 128-bit encryption with the HTTPS protocol that needs to be set up. So that's a part of the implementation of the system, is actually making sure that that level of security has been implemented. And it's actually in our documentation that we recommend all partners implement the HTTPS protocol.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it without, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'll let you continue.
Thanks, Will. No, that's great. Thanks for your input there. So I'm going to put in my username. I'm going to pick my company. I'm going to hit sign in. And this is actually going to load the Sage 300 screen for me and take me into the actual application. Now, at this point, I've usually already got a couple of widgets that I've added to the desktop, so those are going to take a few seconds to load. The first time the screen loads for the system, it's going to take a second longer, but once it's loaded, it's actually, I can log off and log back in, and it loads actually fairly quickly for me. And I'd be able to get quick access to it. So I've actually, like I said, have a couple of widgets already loaded. I have cash position, income from operations. I have income and expenses in a graph form. I have inventory item performance. And if I scroll down, I have top salesperson and top customers by billing. So this just gives me a sense of a snapshot of what's going on in the organization. We actually offer multiple widgets. So you have, at one time, you can have up to 6 on the screen. So if I want to look at expiring vendors and I prefer to look at vendor information, I can uncheck the 2 I don't need and check the ones I do need. It's a simple check, and it just shows up straight away. I can move them around. I have the ability to right-click on this and say refresh. I have the ability to do different things with these widgets as I need to. We also give you the ability to open up Sage Intelligence Reporting Cloud. Now, this is different than the Sage Intelligence you may be used to. This is actually a new version of the product. Your reports in the current desktop application unfortunately don't come over, but they already come pre-built with a lot of stock reports. So if you need a quick snapshot of a financial statement, this is a good way to get it without having to open up the full Sage Intelligence reporting tool. From here, if I wanted to go into accounts payable, like the screenshot we showed before, I would go to AP. If I want to go to vendors, I simply click on vendors, and that's going to actually load my vendor screen for me. And you'll see it actually opening up a window here, and it tells me which window it's actually opening up there. So this is how I'm going to navigate back and forth between the system. I've got the AP vendor open. Again, I've got a finder here where I can actually click on, like we saw before with the regular desktop, where I can choose vendor 1200. I can search by different values in the system. I can choose vendor 1200, hit select. I could simply enter 1200 and tab, and now I can actually see that actual vendor data. Now, this also highlights a new feature, which is the notes feature, so I can actually see any important notes about vendor 1200 in the system. I can simply close that so it slides off the screen. And then if I want to go back home, I simply click on home, and it takes me back to my dashboard. And you'll note if I want to get back to my actual vendor activity, I can simply hover over this open Windows menu, and you'll see that's grayed out because it's not active. So if I select it, it now becomes active. If I wanted to go to order entry and go to transactions and go to the order entry screen, I simply choose the order entry screen, and this will actually take me into that actual order entry screen, allow me to have access to that data in real time. And again, it's not 2 different databases, it's not 2 different applications, it's the web screens or the classic desktop. If I add an entry here, it's immediately visible in the classic desktop because it's the same application. The only difference is how do I access it, through a browser or through the desktop. At this point, you now notice I'm in the context order entry, so there's that screen that's been highlighted, and the other one's now grayed out. If I go home, this will take me back to my home screen where my widgets are. If I click on the navigation, you'll now notice it pops out and gives me the ability to see those 2 screens, and I can switch back and forth easily. If I want to close one or both, I simply hit the X, and they both disappear. We also have the ability to have recent, so if I want to go into recent and go back to that AP screen, I can go to AP vendors, and it opens up that screen for me real quickly and easily, and you see it updates to recent as well. We also give you the ability to have access to custom cursor reports. So right now on your classic desktop, you can drop a custom cursor report and be able to run it from your desktop. Well, this supports that same concept. You just drop it into the reports folder underneath the web screens for Sage 300, and then you can run those custom cursor reports from there. We've also, with the latest release, added an inquiry feature, which gives you the ability to inquire into receivables. We'll be adding additional modules as time goes on, but this is more of a not WYSIWYG, but more of a open-ended inquiry to allow you to search for specific records in the system by document number. So if you know the document number, you can search by that in the system, and it just gives you a good bit of flexibility on how and what you may be looking for in the system in a quick and easy fashion.
And it's actually easier than the desktop screen. That may be some impetus for some people, even in the office, to use that inquiry feature right from there.
Absolutely, and that was one of the drivers. Was we just didn't want to replace what we had in the classic desktop. We wanted to make this inquiry better. So in development, I've been working with them, and I've actually seen them have a we in here. I've seen them have other inquiry screens in here. So we are looking at extending this and having more inquiries in the system as well. If I wanted to go back to my notes, there's my notes, that little pencil. This gives me notes to everything, so I can look by a certain entity if I needed to. But this is always going to pop up notes based on the context of where you're at. So if I go back to my menu now, you'll see I have the two menus. I have my inquiry screen, so I can close that. And then if I want to close the vendor one, I can close the vendor one as well, which takes me again back to the home screen. Okay, so that kind of gives us a look and feel of what the web view looks like with the latest product. So let's talk about some business issues that that we find a lot of BV customers running into. So the common one are customer sales and service / account management, basically relationship management. Now, don't turn off because you think this is sales related. Yes, it's sales related to an extent, but most of us have customers. Most of us need to deal with customers. Most of us have someone in the organization come into accounting asking for accounting information. Right? Well, right now in Business Vision, it's pretty limiting on what they can actually get to because accounting don't want them in the system. Well, if we use our customer relationship tool, we can give access to the service department or the account managers or the customer salespeople to this accounting data without having real access to the data and be able to alter the data. As Will mentioned before, we can do quotes through the web browser with the web screens, but we can also do quotes through CRM as well. So let's take a look at what this might look like. So this is a dashboard of the KPI for Sage CRM, so you can actually have a snapshot of what's going on inside of the CRM system. We also have the ability to have a calendar, and this is our latest calendar. It gives you a day, week, month view, so I can see various activities in the system. And ultimately, what it gives you the ability to do is have visibility to customer data. We do offer through our professional services team at Business Vision access to sales history because a lot of customers say, well, our account people still need access to Business Vision, so if we could give them access to that data and read form through the CRM system, they were quite excited about that. Now, that is a customization that we built for our Business Vision customers. We do offer out-of-the-box full integration with 300, so you would have the ability to have both if you choose to go down that path. So let's actually take a look at what the product looks like here for a second. So I'm going to switch images here.
As Rob works his magic with his demo system here, I'll just say, even as Rob said, even if you don't have clients or customers per se in the standard sense, it is such a huge benefit for the whole organization to have one place to go to have the same data that everybody can use. You don't have spreadsheets hanging around and this person's got an email from 2 weeks ago. CRM can just aggregate all other kinds of data, as well as with Sage 300, show you live accounting data and potentially even do transactions if you're doing that. We've got dozens and dozens of CRM clients, and they love it. They can't live without it. We've been using it for almost 20 years here. And it's what I log into the first thing and what I log out to the last thing and what I use when I'm on the road. Because, again, it is browser-based like the web screens we showed in Sage 300. There's no local install, and it's secure, so you can access it from any device anywhere that you have the internet.
Great. Thanks, Will. So as an example, I just logged in while Will was talking there. I went to the dashboard. I saw the dashboard. I have a customer calling me. They gave me their customer number, or maybe they gave me their name. So just like on the Finder in 300, I can search by the name. Well, I can also search by the customer number. So I just happened to use Chloride 1200 before. Ronald Black. So here's customer 1200, Ronald Black. So I have access to Ron's information, so I can click on Ron's data and actually be able to see that company entity in the system. In addition to being able to search by that, you'll notice that star is actually yellow there. Well, that means he's under my favorites, so I can actually get to Ron whenever I need to. If I need to get to Chloride Systems, I can click on Chloride Systems. If I wanted to actually see an opportunity that I've been working with Ron on, I can actually go to this opportunity here, or I can actually go to the tab called Opportunities and actually be able to see the actual opportunities that I've been working with Ron on in the system as well. So here's a couple of opportunities. The opportunity I had up there before was actually for Chloride Systems. So if I go to that opportunity, you'll actually see I've actually already done a quote and an order for this, so you can see the original quoted amount. The pending is 0, which means I've changed it to an order. I haven't shipped it and I haven't invoiced it. So this is just showing you a sample of what the integration does out of the box. I can generate the quote in CRM. It goes to the accounting system. Until it's promoted to an order, it's in pending status. Once it's actually been ordered and placed by the customer, then it goes to ordered amount. In the accounting system, Sage 300, when I ship it, it'll update the opportunity to let the salespeople know that this has been shipped. When it's actually been invoiced, it'll let the salespeople know that the invoice has actually been gone or delivered for this customer as well in this specific order. So I have a lot of access to this data in real time. So if I wanted to see the quote, I can go to Quotes under the tab, and this is going to show me the quote that's been completed in the system, and you can see it's linked to this actual order. If I wanted to see the order, I could simply go to Orders. I don't have to use the one on that screen. I can go to the tab called Orders and see the actual order in the system, and you can see the associated quote. If I click into the order, it actually gives me that real-time view of that data from the accounting system with that actual order detail of what was actually placed on that order. So any information about this order would be live and visible here as well. Now, if I didn't know the opportunity that I was looking for, but I knew the customer, I could go to Ron. From Ron, I can actually go to OE Inquiry. From OE Inquiry, I can actually see all of the orders. And when I go into all the orders, I would be able to see that order 71. I'd also be able to see that quote. Now, the All Orders feature is actually showing me specific information about open orders at this point. So if I needed to include completed ones, I would need to check complete transactions so they would filter those in versus excluding them as they are right now. So if I click on drill down, it actually take me into that actual order and allow me to have access to that actual order in the system. So not only can I get to it from the opportunity, I can get to it from the actual OE screen, OE inquiry screen within CRM. This is all real time, and as the order is getting processed and updated, the sales team, anyone that has access to using CRM would have access to this data in a real-time fashion. If I go back to the Summary tab for the company, I actually have additional functionality that's available to me here as well. I have the ability to create a new quote, a new order. I can actually check inventory availability from here as well. This gives a customer service person, a salesperson, the ability to say, hey, the customer is asking about this fluorescent desk lamp. Yes, we have some on hand. So you can immediately tell them, yes, we have it. Do you want an order, or do you want us to give you a quote? Yes, please give me a quote. Click on New Quote. Creates the opportunity, puts you in the quote screen, puts the item on there. All you have to do is put the quantity and click Save. Very simple, very efficient way of doing that. If they want to see a little bit more information, you can actually drill into the item number before actually going to create the quote and actually see additional details such as which location actually has that item quantity that we were looking at previously. So have all of this in real time access as I need it. So let's just say I don't have any on hand, even though obviously I do. I can actually see that there are 6 on sales order and there's 310 on PO. If I click on the 310 in PO, it'll actually tell me when my expected arrival date of those items are. So I expect them on the 13th of next month. I can actually manage those client expectations from the beginning with the simple access of CRM using the inquiry tools that ship out of the box. Will, did you have any other comments before we move on?
Well, I'll just say that that integration is industry leading between the accounting and the, if you want to call it, customer side. But CRM is kind of a bit of a misnomer because it's not just customer relationship management. It's anything relationship management. you know, we don't have time to show all the features. We could spend an hour or more just showing CRM features in there, but you have cases. We have custom entities we've created to track any number of things, you know, things like subscriptions and renewals and memberships and just general information about people or companies that we can store in CRM that you may not have on the accounting side, but then you can quickly flip over and see, like Rob just showed, all the accounting information if it's applicable to that person or company as well. It's just a great, powerful tool that as I said before, everybody should be using. We have dozens of clients that use it every day, all day.
Great, Will. Thanks. And he's absolutely right. The way I describe CRM a great deal of the time is it's a development platform with a CRM module already built in. So it just gives you that flexibility to say, you know what, I have all this data in either databases like Access or Excel spreadsheets that are related to customers or vendors or related in some way that I have no easy way to manage. CRM is that easy way to manage that data. So we find a lot of customers don't use it for sales, marketing, and customer service. They use it to manage all this other disparate data about those accounts. Okay, so some of the other issues that we mentioned were business issues around inventory. So for example, segmented item numbers. This is one of the big ones. Being able to say the first segment is the segment. Natural segment code, but the second segment may be color, and the third segment may be size, right? You can actually build that logic into our segments and have them be validated or not validated as you need to. We also give you the ability to do categories, so you don't have one category, you can have multiple categories, and you can define this item is in this category, such as accessories versus parts versus finished goods versus raw materials. You can have different categories for items in the system. We also offer unlimited optional fields at the item level, at the transaction level, on a vendor, on a customer. Optional fields are basically all over the product. We also offer serial lot tracking. So I believe Business Vision may have a light version of this, but we offer serial lot tracking with expiry dates. And we have one item can have both. So this is a big difference with our system. I've actually been talking to customers they don't have lots necessarily, but they need to track that this product came in on this container, so they want to allocate it to the container. So they're actually using the lot to track containers that this product came in on and be able to allocate which product is going out from which container. So that's a really nice, unique way of using the serial and lot tracking capability.
Yeah, it's almost like a mini warehouse management system. We've done things like that too as well.
Exactly.
So
we also have multiple item numbers for the same item. And what that means is I have my internal item number that I use, my vendor has an item number, or multiple vendors have different item numbers for the same item. My customer may have an item number, and the manufacturer of the product may have an item number. All of these are values that we track out of the box. It's not optional fields, it's actually set up data in the system. We also offer contract pricing. That's not just pricing, it's actually specific pricing for a customer. So a customer may be on price list A. We have unlimited price list at pricing level C, but for this widget, they're going to guarantee they're going to buy X amount. So as a result, we're going to give them a special contract price on that item. So when we pull their pricing, and we go check a price, it's going to show for that item a special price for them that's not on the price list, but under their contracted pricing. So they're going to get the default pricing on the price list for the level they're at, and they're also going to get the specific contract price. So just that flexibility that we offer that Business Vision doesn't offer. We also offer robust and simplified kitting. So we have a bill of materials, we have multi-level bill of material, and we have improved kitting. With Business Vision, the biggest issue with kitting is when you put something together, it actually treats it as a bill of materials. And unfortunately, if you bring that back into inventory, it doesn't explode it or disassemble it, right? So you're stuck with that finished good that's not really ever been put together because it was never meant to be put together. It was a kit. In Sage 300, we have kitting that is, I like to use the example of rooms to go. Rooms to go, you go and you buy that living room set. It has 2 chairs, two coffee tables, or 1 coffee table, 2 end tables, and a couch. right? A couple of lamps. Those individual pieces come together as a kit that you're going to sell that room. If you bring them back into inventory, it's going to go back into inventory as the individual elements, not as the kit finished good. So our bill of materials is taking A, B, and C and making D. We do that as well. So I can take different items, make a new item. We can also disassemble and assemble that. But we also have the ability to do the kitting, which is, like we mentioned, the rooms to go example. We also have multiple locations. So Business Vision has this feature as well, but we actually have one item that can go into all of your locations. Whereas right now in Business Vision, you actually have one item that goes into one location, and that's it. If you need that item in another location, you actually have to set the item up again, which gives you no way to see the visibility of, do I have this item in multiple locations? Well, you have no idea because each item is different in each location. As I showed you in CRM, that functionality comes from 300, which is when I look at an item, I can see all of the locations it's in, and that's a native feature of Sage 300, and we support that with the CRM integration as well.
And that's, Rob, that's been one of the reasons why we've converted some BB inventory management heavy customers to Sage 300 is because as they grew, that just became too onerous to manage. And even going forward, they added the bin tracking module from Orchid and things like that to just further expand seeing how much is located in one location, in the overstock location, in the, you know, in the sales room location. It could be physical or virtual locations. It's so powerful. People just are like, I don't have to do all those other things I used to have to do before. And,
exactly.
You know, multiply my data five times just because I have 5 different locations for the same item.
Exactly.
It's a great feature.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal feature, and we'll hit on a point I was just about to hit on, so I'm going to transition to that for a second. Our locations can be physical locations like warehouse A, B, C, and D, but we can also have what's called logical locations, which means your FOB point, that's your constructive receipt of that inventory defined by your vendor relationship. If you're buying product from China, for example, would be the port in China. So if something happens to the product on the container or in the container in the boat, and it's gone forever for whatever reason, because of the FOB point, you have to constructively receive it even though you haven't physically received it. We actually have inventory locations that can be those constructive receipt locations. For example, maybe you receive it at the point of it's in the container, right? But it's at the port. Then you transfer it from the port to the boat so you can see that it's in transit. And then you can actually transfer it from in transit on the boat to another logical location at the customs warehouse in Vancouver, for example. And then you can actually transfer it to your final inventory location in Vancouver if that's how your system works, if you want to track that, right? Or you can just have it be goods in transit until you actually receive it. So that's up to you on how you set your system up, but the system allows that flexibility and that design detail. Thanks, Will.
No problem. Helps with drop shipping too.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Drop shipping as well. Use that for drop shipping. So you receive it into a goods in transit location and then ship it out straight away. One of the other big issues that customers come up with is really reporting, and this is actually an issue across the board. We've actually added a product called Sage Intelligence. It's actually been around for a number of years. We've recently launched a version of it to work with Business Vision, but it's really designed to work with our more mid-market products, so 300, Sage 100, but mainly 300X3 are the products that we would be focusing on. And it's a phenomenal product that just gives you a tremendous amount of capabilities in the system. So let's actually go take a look at what that actually looks like. So this is a screenshot of what the product looks like with a report that's actually ran. This is the financial ratio report. This report's been customized to have spark lines versus just a percentage, so you can actually have spark lines there using that type of functionality from the tool. We also offer a intelligence reporting utility, which is really great because what happens is we're constantly building new reports. And when we build new reports, we need to give you a way of getting to those reports without having to update the entire Sage 300 product. So this utility is a free utility. From this URL, you download it, and then you go, when you run it, it'll give you the ability to pick which reports you want, and it uploads it into the product. So a really nice way of being able to have access to some reports in the system. Here's an example of what one of the reports look like with some spark lines, for example. So let's take a look at what this tool actually looks like in the system. So we won't spend a great deal of time on this, but we'll spend a couple minutes just running through an example of what this looks like. So I'm going to switch back to my other image here. This timed out, which is good. Don't want it to keep running when I'm not at my desktop. So I'm going to come over here to my intelligence reporting tool. Click on that. I'm going to go into what's called the Report Manager, and this is going to give me access to the Sage Intelligence data in the system. I've actually made a copy of a couple of reports. So that financial ratio one that we looked at in the screenshot, I'll be able to pick the 3 years I want to look at here, hit OK. Hit OK, and it's going to go through and generate that report for me and show me those financial ratios. This is a new report with the latest launch of 2018. So this gives me a lot of the financial ratios that CFOs or CEOs may want to take a look at. The nice thing about the Sage Intelligence tool is you can also schedule these reports to be ran and published to Excel or even to an HTML form or to a PDF. So you can have them sent to someone in the organization that you want to have access to this report, but not have to actually have access to Sage Intelligence and or even 300 to get access to this actual data in the system. So this is running through the actual process of building this report and pulling the ratios from the system for all 3 years that I had selected, which were 2018, 19, and 20 in the system. And now it's actually rendering that data into the Excel spreadsheet for me to have access to it in the system. So I know I've worked with Will in the past, and we've actually gone out and shown this to a customer who literally almost, and we had to stop him, literally doing cartwheels because he was building financial reports in Excel by exporting the data out, manipulating the data, and then republishing the data every month. And it was taking him 2 to 3 weeks to build the financial reports. We showed him this tool, and he took that time of 2 to 3 weeks down to 2 to 3 days, and then he was able to use the rest of that 1 week to actually analyze the data he'd generated versus just building it and going on to catch up with the previous month's work or the current month's work. So in this case, you can actually see it's still generating the sheet here. It's giving me the ability to go in and see some layouts, some lists, some formulas in the system, and I have the ability to run this and see this in real time as it's going through and actually calculating the sheet for me in the system. Now, as I mentioned before, we can actually have this be scheduled so I don't have to wait for this to actually get done. I can actually just schedule this and have it publish the report out to a format that I want to actually have access to. So now that the report's been generated, I can actually now see my ratios. So here's the raw data. And then if I look at my financial data, there's the financial data, and I can see the ratio report. So you can see I'm down 49%, down 125%. I can actually change the year by selecting it through the drop-down here on this add-in. And I can also see the actual ratios in the chart section as well. So this gives me the ability to see my profit margin, my ROA, ROE, ROCE, gross margin. I can scroll down and see there's lots of asset utilization ratios, there's liquidity ratios. So all of these ratios are immediately available by using this simple chart and this report built into the system. So really nice report to show you all these visuals and have access to this data when you actually really need access to it. So
and because, Rob, you just ran this out in real time, it's live up to the minute data right from Sage 300 accounting system. If you ran it this morning and sent a copy to somebody, it would obviously be the data from that time. But if somebody called and said, I need the latest, we just put in a big order, I mean, that took a minute to run or whatever it took. That client that you and I met with, I think it was taking him 2 to 3 hours once he finally got the report, you know, and that was per report. It wasn't like it was doing all his financial ratios. That was one report.
Right.
It went down to minutes or, you know, less than, you know, maybe 100 or 200 seconds or something like that.
Right.
You know, enough to just go get a glass of water, not drive to the other side of town and have lunch and come back and still be waiting. It was a huge benefit for them.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah, and we went back and revisited them later, and they were quite happy with the tool and just what it opened up for them, what they could do, and actually other reports they wanted to build. Because what he found out was, and what we found out later was, they were constantly having to change the reports. So instead of having to rebuild it from scratch, he simply made a copy, tweaked it, and then was able to reissue the report without having to rebuild it again from scratch. So that was just huge savings.
Yeah.
This is another example of a report that I really like. This shows the reporting tree capabilities using the report designer in the system, where I can actually say what segments and what divisions do I want to report on. If you notice here is the commercial division, which is division 100, and then segment 10 is northern, southern, eastern, western, being 10, 20, 30, 40. The way I built this reporting tree is if I pull division 100 over here, it actually combines all that together in that one column. Now, I know that's made that look wrong, but the point is I could add a column and have all of it be combined. So I could have a combined for division 100, and then a combined for division 200 here, and then each individual segment broken out. So I can build these reporting trees the way I want to see them in the system, and it's really quite easy to do. You just simply define the name, you choose what the division is. If I wanted to change that to northern, I could put northern there, right? And then hit apply, hit OK. And now when I go to use that again, that northern division is now shown there in the system, and it calls it northern for me. So I can easily define that and make it be what makes sense to me versus what's in the system data that was originally set up in the chart of accounts. Okay. So if we go back to our deck here, so that was some of the business issues that we ran into. So just to kind of recap where we are here at this point, Jen mentioned earlier that I was going to mention some of the other products that we offer. Will actually mentioned a couple of them. We actually have a really large third-party community of several hundred products that are repped across North America by various representatives that tie in tightly to Sage 300. A couple of them was the bin tracking, the RMA module. There's a list here of a service management module. The inventory advisor product we mentioned is a connected service. CRM is one of our core products. Sales tax, if you need to do sales and use tax tracking. Mostly, if you wanted to do it for Canadian provinces, it supports it, it does it, but that's usually fairly straightforward. But when you start getting into the states and you have thousands, tens of thousands of jurisdictions you need to manage, potentially selling into, then the sales and use tax module becomes a very valuable asset. In addition.
Absolutely, Rob, especially people may think, well, I'm in Canada, but if you're selling in the States or even doing services in the States, you may reach Nexus and not really be aware, and this could help mitigate that risk for liability that you may be incurring without even really thinking about it now. If you do any business in the States, any client should be looking at it for sure.
I completely agree. And the states are looking at this as lost revenue, so they have hired, each state is hiring hundreds of tax auditors, sales tax auditors, to look at companies that do business in their state to figure out how to get sales tax out of them. So
yeah, and if they find one of your invoices, they're coming after you for sure.
And they are, they really are. Especially if you have someone working in that state, then you definitely have to get that sales tax collected. It becomes a little bit more ambiguous when you're not working there, but more times than not, states are now saying you sell here, you collect here. And they don't care that you don't have any representation there. And you'll notice that with the big companies that have, e-commerce sites. They're having to collect sales tax in places that you've never had to pay sales tax before. So definitely something that comes up. Finishing up, we have our own human resources product. We have our own alerts and workflow. We have fixed assets. We have lots of products and lots of additional functionality that are available with the product. So to kind of recap here, modern interface, desktop web screens, customer service, sales, account management, integration with multiple other products, several reporting options. I didn't talk about Crystal, but it's been there for 1,000 years, so it's not going anywhere. Sage Intelligence, we have other intelligence tools that we add in. We have several inquiry tools. We have several other add-ins that are available within the product as well. Robust inventory, multilingual support, multi-location support, multi-language, multi-location. All of these all add up to key drivers for Sage 300. So at this point, I was going to pass this back to, was it Jen or Will, to talk about the current promotions going on?
Yeah, it's over to me, Rob. It's so for clients of Business Vision that have been paying their maintenance and they're still using the product, Sage has been offering up until the end of your fiscal year, at the end of September, fiscal year being Sage's fiscal year at the end of September, that basically whatever you've been paying this year or currently for your Business Vision renewal for your business care plan, your annual fees if you want to call it, for another 50% more than that, Sage will give you Sage 300C for an equal number of users. Basically, if you have a 10-user BV system standard edition now, for a minor increase, right, you'd be paying $21.74 if you didn't have any other add-ons or things as your business care renewal. Now you add another just about $1,100, and now you got 10 users of Sage 300C with the same modules, plus a lot of these other features, the Sage Intelligence built in, you know, the ability to have Inventory Advisor Basic for free. You know, you can look at things like AP automation and all those other features, plus the add-ons like CRM. You get one user of CRM for free. Huge benefit there. So if anybody's thinking about doing this in the next 6 months, you should at least look at the software and getting on Sage 300C while this promo's on for the end of September. Because, sorry, excuse me there, but if you don't do it by the end of September, not to be a salesperson, but we don't know what the new Sage fiscal year will bring, but last year the promo was a little higher. It's been dropping, so you're not going to get a better deal than you get today. But it's a great opportunity for those clients.
Great. Thanks, Will. So we're going to open it up to Q&A.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on the chat. There's a couple of questions here. So one, Rob, is maybe I'll let you answer, but basically it's about the technology, because I think, like you said at the outset, some people have been confused what the C moniker on Sage 300C is about. They thought it meant it was cloud and in the cloud, and they didn't need to have hardware or physical or virtual hardware to run their system on. So do you want to just talk about the technology behind running Sage 300C? It is pretty similar to Business Vision in a lot of sense. So whether they have it on their own hardware or in a private cloud, maybe you can just talk quickly about that.
Sure. So it is client server / web-based software. So it needs a current server with a decent amount of RAM, a decent processor, and Will can get into specifics and provide you the compatibility guides. But basically, you need more than likely an updated server in this scenario, simply because the server you have now with Business Vision on it is probably rather old. It may not be. I'm just assuming. Sometimes that's what happens. So in this case, you would need SQL, which we have licensing. We can work with you on that. You would also need Sage 300 installed. You would need IIS installed. So there's some technology that needs to be brought up to date to make sure you consider that as part of the ongoing project when you're looking at the Sage 300 product. But it's all either installed in your servers in your office. If you want to control your destiny of that equipment, that's perfectly fine. If you want to install and work with Will's team and have that installed in a hosted data center, that's perfectly fine as well. We, Sage, don't have a problem with you hosting the software you're subscribing to in a data center of your choosing and or in your office. That's up to you and your deployment choices.
Yeah, and that's great, Rob. I mean, it's all Windows-based technology. Microsoft SQL database, a little different than the pervasive database people are used to, but we can convert that data, you know, over as we do with all our clients. There's you know, some conversion processes. You're probably going to still keep your BV running for CRA requirements as you go forward, but the current data in the system will come over. You'll have opening balances and net changes per period. You'll be able to do comparative reports. But it'll run better. SQL is a faster, better database technology, and it allows us. CRM runs on the SQL, HR runs on SQL, all the third-party apps use it. So it's you know, it's one system, and a lot of our clients are really starting to look at, do I buy a new server or do I just pay somebody to manage one for me, and I just connect to it from wherever I'm at again. So it's we have options. We can, if your data, you know, your IT service provider doesn't offer that, we have some very good options. Can be hosted only in Canada if you want, so we can look at that. The next question, it may have been before you got to this point, but maybe we'll just reiterate it, Rob. It was about inventory control, and current BV customers having issues finding the same item in different locations? You kind of covered it, but maybe just go over it again, how that's different in Sage 300.
Yeah, so within Business Vision, for each location, you have to have a unique item. So if it's item 123, then you have to have that item set up 123 dash location 1, 123 dash 2 in your inventory, which means I can't go to item 123 and see all of the locations it's under. Whereas with 300, Sage 300, you can actually go into item 123 and see all 5 or all 10, all 100 locations that item is in your warehouse. And this is the big difference for a lot of clients. So in Will's example, if you have 5,000 items because you have each item in 5 locations, your inventory goes down to 1,000 because it's one item in all 5 locations. And that's a huge time saving, because that means you don't have to put that item on every price list. You don't have to put it in and set it up for each customer. It just makes the life of inventory management, 1/20th the work. So
absolutely, and purchasing.
And purchasing, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're just purchasing one item, whether you're shipping it to different locations or not. You're not having to remember this item's for that location, that one's for that location. So it's a great tool.
Exactly.
Again, this one may have come a little earlier too. It's about the pricing in multiple complex price lists, volume discounts, and other complexity. How is that different than Business Vision?
So we offer multiple pricing levels, we offer multiple price lists, and we offer that contract pricing. So we have a rather complex tier structure that you can build for volume discounts for items. So if the customer buys up to 100, then they pay this price. If the customer buys up to 200, then they pay this price. So you can build that volume discounting into the system. Even though there's basic functionality and discounts available, we actually offer that at a much more robust and complex level within 300 than Business Vision. So not necessarily that the feature is not there, it's just we offer a more robust feature set around that. And if what we offer isn't enough, there's actually a rather large set of add-ons in the community that have been developed, and even a newer one that's been developed to even offer more complex pricing models than maybe what we even offer out of the box. So there's lots of flexibility there.
Yeah, pretty much we can handle everything, and there's tools to help you automate the updating of pricing. If you're in like a apparel business or something, you want to have a matrix. We've done that with clients. There's so many more things we can do. It's one of the strongest areas of Sage 300, I would say.
Absolutely.
I kind of answered the migration question. Basically what comes over in a BV conversion, but I'll just recap it here. So basically we have a tool from Sage that will bring over the basic migration information, GL balances and that sort of thing, customer and vendor information. We tend to do additional work on top of that. And even a lot of times when we do these migrations, it's a time for people to be able to make a change if they can take advantage of a more robust item numbering structure, like Rob said, vendor and customer numbering, even GL numbering. We have, more complex capabilities there. So we may revamp the chart of accounts if you've got multiple companies. We may, and they all have different chart of accounts, but you want to make them similar and then consolidate. That's one thing we didn't talk about in intelligence, as well as a lot of our clients are using the Sage Intelligence tool to consolidate multiple companies, even especially if they're in different currencies. It's been a great tool to, again, speed up that process without having to have like a consolidated company set up in the database if they don't really need that. So it's when we bring that information over, you're going to have opening balances, net changes. We may pare down your, get rid of some old customer and vendor information, old item information, old accounts that you don't use, and just streamline things. Again, that may be why you have to keep a copy of your Business Vision data, and you may refer back to closed transaction detail history in that going forward. All open transactions, of course, will be in Sage 300, at least with the balance that's left owing on it. But that's the kind of data you can expect that we're going to work with you to bring in. So, I mean, you can get into more complex data migration, but it tends to cost money and time. So that's something we'll sit down with you and go through. What exactly do you need?
Yeah, that's a great point. And as you were saying that, I was thinking I didn't talk about intercompany and GL consolidations, but we actually do offer those modules. They are separate modules. But as Will said, if you just need basic combining of financials, then that's certainly something that can be done with the Sage Intelligence tool. And if you didn't notice, there was consolidation reports available in the system, and you can connect to multiple data sources there. So there are options around that, making that happen. Great.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't get into the intercompany and whether it's a GL to GL transaction automation or subledger like AP to AR. Great tools there to help people who have that capability. Just a whole nother level of complexity, but also automation to help you grow but not have to add more admin and people to manage it. And that's where we tend to see, aside from the location and the multiple items for locations, those are the kind of things we see people want to have when they're looking at making this jump. And e-commerce and, some of those electronic payments to, mitigate risk on fraud and that sort of thing. There's so many more features there that we can offer.
That's great.
All right, I think that's the end of my questions here, Rob.
Okay, no more other questions? All right.
No.
So did you want to wrap up there?
I will. So if I want to thank Jennifer and Rob for being part of this presentation, providing their input and knowledge, because they've been doing this for even longer than I have. But if you do think of some other questions or you want to talk about this, give me a ring, give me an email, go to da.ca, you can find us there. Our webpage, there's a lot of information. We're happy to help. Again, the promo from Sage ends at the end of September, so if you're thinking about doing this, even if we don't start the project yet, we should talk about getting you over on the promo pricing so that if we're starting in October or November, kind of migration time frame, at least you've taken advantage of this great pricing offer from Sage to get you on a huge leap forward in technology of the accounting system. All right, thanks, Rob. I really appreciate your time, and again, just fire me any questions. Thank you, everybody, for attending. It's a long presentation, but hope you found it valuable, and let me know if you got any questions.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day.